I'd like to call the ISD709, the Duluth Public Schools regular monthly school board meeting to order. It is Tuesday, October 19th. It is about 6:40. And again, we are in Denfeld High School in a transition period from moving out of historical Central High School to a new district service building that will be built up on the Central on the Hill site. But temporarily we are here. And so we want to welcome you and conduct the business of the school. So I'm going to turn it over to Clerk Oswald and she will take roll.
Member Eater. Present. Member Kirby.
Here.
Member Loeffler-Kemp.
Here.
Chair Lopez.
Here.
I am here. Member Sandholm.
Here.
And Member Trinka will be there. Superintendent Magus.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Here.
Deputy Clerk Erickson. Here. Secretary Dolan. Here. Student representative, Denfeld's Aaliyah Bartlett. Here. And Stella Schutz is excused. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on our agenda is the approval of tonight's agenda. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approval of the agenda as it stands, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Executive Secretary Nolan.
Who motioned, who second?
Okay, I was just gonna kind of repeat that too. It was motioned by Member Loeffler-Kemp and seconded by Member Clerk Oswald. So we have an agenda. Moving along on our agenda, item number 5 is school and community recognition. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Assistant Superintendent Bonds, and he will help us celebrate this month's community recognition.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Members of the board, this month it is my pleasure to present for recognition the Duluth American Indian Education Parent Advisory Committee. The Parent Advisory Committee has been awarded Exemplary Program of the Year for our region. This is given by the National Johnson O'Malley Association. So let's give them a round of applause. This award highlights the efforts of the parent committee and the Duluth American Indian Education Department to engage American Indian students in culturally relevant activities and events. The award recognizes the important work of this committee in supporting the mission of the Duluth American Indian Education Program to promote youth leadership, provide academic support, to encourage career development for American Indian students based on American Indian values, culture, and language. Committee Chairperson Angela Buffalo received and accepted this award at the National Conference in Atlantic City. We want to congratulate them on receiving this award and thank them for their leadership and support of Duluth students and families. Good. Thank you.
Why not? Our eyes tell it all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And before you go way to the back, are there any board members that would like to share anything? I've always given you guys a chance to just congratulate, but.
I really appreciate, I know we all value when you come up and present to us and you always have a good turnout of people that come and do that. And both the monthly work that you do, but just all of the time that you put in speaking on behalf of our families. So thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations. We appreciate it. Next on our agenda tonight, board members, is our public comment. So at this meeting tonight, we have no public comment. So number 7 on our agenda is reading, communications, and petitions, and we've had none this month as well. So that brings us then to agenda item number 8, report of the superintendent. And under the report of the superintendent, we have reports from our student school board reps. We have the student superintendent's report, and then we just look again at our schedule of meetings and events for the coming couple of weeks. So I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Vegas. Thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. And tonight, Stella Schutz from East is not here. We have Aaliyah Bartlett from Denfeld. I had the honor of attending part of the Denfeld East game, and it was very challenging to know when to cheer and who to cheer for. So I was cheering all the time. But Aaliyah, if you would mind sharing your report.
Yeah, well, obviously, I think you should cheer for Denfeld. Despite the fact we don't win often, always cheer for Denfeld. Okay, so right now, dental students are just really trying to make the best of the year with a lot of the negativities that are going on in the school right now. Since my freshman year, it has never been this dark and honestly kind of violent, and it's really sad that the seniors have to worry about this on top of college and scholarship applications in their final year. On a more positive note, the boys soccer team is playing at PSS tonight at 8 p.m. in the section final against Cloquet, so hopefully they can go to state for the 2nd year in a row. Volleyball got canceled, but luckily a few parents came together and organized a dance that is open to students on October 30th. 2 weeks ago was homecoming, and congratulations to Denasia James and Carson Schulte being named homecoming king and queen. The whole week was really fun. I love doing all the dress-up days. The football game was super fun. Our student section is huge. Lately, the student section at all of the sporting events have been really big, even if it's away. Last week, math team started up. There's a few new sophomores. The team is looking to score really high in all of the events, and the meets will be held at school on computers instead of traveling to nearby schools to do meets, which is going to be really nice. This year, the team should be pretty good. Seniors are working on scholarship and college applications right now. Last week, seniors had a scholarship night to learn about all of the opportunities to earn free money. I know that a lot of students are hoping to get applying done by the end of the month so they can apply early action and just be done early. It's definitely a really stressful time right now, but also really exciting. A lot of the English teachers have been meeting with students in order to perfect their essays, and today seniors were in here working on college applications and had lots of help from dental counselors and local area college counselors. We also found out we'll be ordering our cap and gown really, really soon, which is really exciting. Today in Mr. Flo's American Government and Politics class, seniors spoke with Chief Tuscan of the Duluth Police Department. Basically, we just got to drill him with really tough questions. It was really interesting, and it was really nice to be able to get another perspective, since a lot of the time we're just getting up on social media or the news or just the people around us. Tonight, swim team has a swim meet in Aurora. It's 3 North teams versus 3 Southern teams. The medley relay took 3rd. Kaylin Volkanet swam a sub 27-second 50 free. I also found out my sister, Addison, won the 200-meter medley tonight, so I'm really, really proud of her. Last week, Xander Schroeder of the cross-country team got 6th in first team all-conference, and Grace McCormick got 5th in first team all-conference. And tonight, Xander got 9th, and Grace got 2nd in the races. Overall, the team is doing super well. The boys team got 6th in conference, and they're the ones having the dinner out there in the commons. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's been a very exciting year, and we're off to a good start. There are, of course, some challenges, and I'll address some of the challenges as well as the successes in my superintendent's update. So with my superintendent's update, and I'm not sure if it might be best to turn this a little bit that way, just so that the public can see it too. Board members have a copy of this that has been shared as well. If you could turn it just a tiny bit, just so we'll see. We wanted to start off with updates on our district property. And I think in the future, maybe we can get the presentation possibilities. But talk a little bit about some updates related to our district properties. And then I have some quick updates, relatively quick updates, and then some updates on the safe learning plan. And I'll start for just a moment, but then we have a guest, Mark Liberty from Saturday Properties, will be sharing with us as well. So, the time has come, and actually I took this picture this morning off my deck. It was really a beautiful day this morning. But the time has come for our move from historic Old Central to United Health Group building, and we have been going through that process for the past couple of weeks. Nearly all of our departments have transitioned to the United Health Group building at 4316 Rice Lake Road, and that will be the home for ISD709 district support services for the coming months. The Area Learning Center Academic Excellence Online is transitioning this week and will begin instruction at Tech Village starting on October 26th. So that they're deep in process now too. And I just want to say, many people have shown a great amount of flexibility, hard work, and everything to make this transition happen. And we're very grateful for all those efforts of the team, of our facilities folks, CFO Erickson, of everyone who was part of that process in helping us move. And so we're very grateful there. But we wanted to share a little bit, Mark Laverty from Saturday Properties is here, and going to share a little bit about Up the Hill, entitled Up the Hill Before.
Well, thank you all for having me. So I'm Mark Laverty with Saturday. We're a development company and property manager that's based in the Twin Cities. This is would be our second project. We're working on Hawks as well. So I can also just want to make a quick note. I mean, every time, and usually I'm going through the building about on a weekly basis with different folks. And just so seeing how I can imagine moving out of a building, if anyone's helped family move that's been in a house for like 30 years, and you guys have been there for 100 years. So, I mean, seeing that, and then we're having people stop us and ask, like, first there was some concern about this, and now we're excited, and now we really understand what the plans are. So we thank you all for trusting us with what's going on with Hawks. And then, so again, just so looking at our next piece, I want to give you all an update tonight, and just really because it's been around for a long time. And just in the last 6 months, first I want to give a shout out to district staff, to Kathy and Dave and the ICS team, really helping, because there's really 2 projects going on. We have your portion to back the site and ours, and how will this work together? Because we want it to feel like it's all meant to be, this is all part of one plan. So again, we're coordinating real technical aspects, including like, where stormwater going to go, but ultimately, how are connections going to go? So when district staff is up there and folks are coming to visit that building, how are they going to get there? How does that interact with the rest of the housing that's going on? So as you can see now, a lot, big sea of surface parking, and then we can actually jump to the next slide if you don't mind. So this is our vision as it's been where we're at today. So right now we're looking at about 350 to 400 for rent housing units. And you'll see the colors in blue. It's really 3 different kinds of housing that are going on there. First being townhomes. So attached townhomes that you would expect, higher bedroom size, kind of that middle tone blue, that is, those are flats. So anything from the studio to 2-bedroom as well. Again, something that's a little bit lower price point to help out, get folks of all different income levels up there. And then the darker blue, that's a little bit higher density. One of those components we're expecting to be an active senior at this spot. So again, this doesn't have services. These are folks that can keep up with themselves, but can't keep up with the house. So that's, these are And typically we look at, these are folks that have lived in the community, still have family nearby. But as I said, it's just, the house is becoming too much. So what we try to do is have it phased throughout the project itself. And really that's, what we're excited is having those different types of housing up there. How that connects, with the VOTEC building as it sits right now, we're expecting that to be shared amenity space for the different uses and also having a commercial component. Having that right at the edge of the hill is really important. We want to have that be that central gathering space. In an absolute perfect world, that is a destination brewery restaurant that folks are going to have their public access up there. I mean, anyone that's been up there, the views there are absolutely remarkable. And a little zigzag feature as you work down, that's another way we're trying to incorporate stormwater throughout the site, find different ways to do that. And then one thing we're working with the city staff on is other public elements, increasing about, we have a trail system that's up there. How do we go and incorporate that? And that's what's so great about, you have this space to work with. You can have these mix of uses. And that's what we want to do. And this is a lot of the folks that are going to be up here, specifically in those townhomes and flats, are going to be folks with kids. You look at anyone that cruises on Zillow, like all of us kind of doing it part-time, see the cost of housing, like where are people going to live? Where are people going to move to? So getting additional housing in different options is what we're looking to provide. And even by having that kind of central corridor between the VOTEC building to the back of the site, we want to have that connection where the district buildings don't. Well, it's not going to. It's if you're on your lunch break, you're going to go and want to do that loop to go kind of do that. It's really about a 3/4 mile loop around the site. Just do that, and then you would be able to go back. So we're very early on in the process here. This is again, we want to show you all and just give you an update. We've talked to city staff about this to make sure that this is again something that they don't have big hesitation because we're really early on. There's a big public approval process that's going to be going through. This is the only time to give feedback, not just as a school board, but as citizens of Duluth. So we're looking to have an open house. Our first one will be in November. So again, we've had really good feedback actually doing those online. So one of the things we learned most about during COVID, we've had neighborhood open houses, and the biggest things, how do we get as many people to know about the project and give that? So prior to, if it was in-person meetings, it'd be a lot of the folks that show up to those meetings. A lot of times those folks who had the time, had the flexibility to do it, and by having these open houses online, we're getting folks that have never been to any of these public meetings. If anyone, like I have 9-month-old twin infant demo, so going to a public meeting with them would not work. But if it's on Teams, you can listen in, you can put in your question there, and you're participating. We're seeing folks that have never been a part of this process ever, and it's awesome. So we'll have a mix of those. We will do one in person because some folks like coming up and talking in person, but we're just seeing way bigger outreach. It's great. We're at the really early end of the process. I hope to come back and give you guys more updates as we get through this, but happy to answer any questions you have right now.
As an alumni of Central, I've been asked by a lot of alum if they're going to be allowed to be in the building one more time before it's torn down. So I wouldn't be surprised if there might be a buyer's market there. So Superintendent, I guess, would they reach out to Skippo Erickson or would they reach out to you about that?
So we have discussed possibility of maybe having something that it might be easier to have it at least as like an outside opportunity, or potentially allow people to step into the foyer and have photos taken. We can't for safety concerns open up the whole building, but I think it's important for us, as you mentioned, Member Trinka, to recognize the place that this has in the hearts and minds of our folks, and consider what can we do for transitional purpose. And I think it's important for us to consider within scope of what's safe, what could be done that would be reasonable. And I look forward to having conversations with those as well.
Can you repeat for me again? So these are numbered 1 through 9. Is that for the order of the build out that you're doing these in kind of clumps of 9 different timelines?
That's a good question. Not exactly.
Okay.
We effectively just had to do a numbering. So we worked on several large master development plans. So right now our thinking is we're gonna start kind of right in the middle of the site, so see where like 2, 3, 4. And that's part of what we're working through with city staff and the attorney that's working, representing the district as well. So that's our initial thinking is we're gonna start there and kind of work our way up. I know that was a big concern at the beginning, was not having this gap, call it in between where the district building is. So that's our thinking. This is numbers, we're using colors for the roads, it's just solely so we can keep track of it.
I'm excited. I'm excited. And thank you for coming. I mean,
Absolutely, there doesn't, right,
I know.
Right.
You said it in your opening to us too, is our city and this team here and our whole administration is excited you're partner, that you're here, and you've got 2 of our sites that are so important to our city that it's important for us to, you know, see you and hear your excitement, and we're excited. And yeah, I just, you know, I look at, this could be a perfect storm where, you know, CNN is saying that Duluth is, you know, just an incredible place for people from across the country to come and find us. Just people don't know about this much. Now we're having a lot of opportunity for developments and housing. And so instead of maybe projecting, Kathy, you know, enrollment that sees a decline, we've got to speak and lift up our community that says, you know, we are embracing Duluth's beauty and Duluth's charm, and we've got the great developers on the hill that are doing that for us. And, you know, we've got to be ready for that growth, that opportunity for new families to come in.
And I see Member Sandholm has had his hand raised from across the oceans.
Yes, thank you. So just one quick question on our buses going in and out, and it looks like that road between, I guess, the units 1 and 2, are our buses going to go through that zone where those units are, and is that going to be a problem?
That's a good question. The answer to your first one is yes, buses are going to go through there. For us, we actually just had on our call today looking at how that right of way, you can, the width of the road, and you can do different ways to provide buffering there. So that's when we're expanding it, expecting to be a little wider, just if you have buses going both ways. You know, it is something where some residents may view that as a negative, but that's what's great. Here's their options. You know, if you look at, you know, I really want to be in a town. I'm like, if you're looking at, you know, something over on 1 on the north, but it's like, you know, I really want to be something a little more quiet. Well, we have an option for you. And that's, I think, what's really critical about this is there's something for some folks that that's fine. You know, I personally live on a pretty busy street. I think I'm just like an old soul. I like watching cars and stuff go by. But I mean, that's something where some folks will, you know, it just won't be an issue for some. And if it is, then they have other options right there in front of them.
Yeah, it's not like it's all day long. It's just
Totally.
Like early in the morning and then late in the afternoon when they return, I guess. So.
I think.
Okay, I was just curious about that feature. All right, thank you. This is fun to look at and very interesting. Thank you.
And Member Longford-Kemp?
For me, right?
Mark.
Or Mark.
No, you're good.
Okay, sorry. Okay. I really appreciate this as well, but I guess I'd like to share with you, Saturday Properties has had some exposure with our Duluth News Tribune, and I just really appreciate that you know, have been speaking with the paper and kind of getting the word out. And I had the opportunity to be out in the community a lot lately and talking with folks. And I have been hearing just a lot of really positive. People are really excited to see what's going to happen up there. So I guess I just encourage you to keep sharing as much publicly so the broader community is hearing what's going on. And I've appreciated what's been introduced so far.
Well, thank you for saying, and it's worth repeating. I mean, our process is we are open. I mean, this is something we want to get out there. So if folks are asking, you know, have them and direct them to our website. We're going to have a link to the open house again. If that can be included on any district mail, like, hey, by the way, this is an option. We want people to know. The worst phone calls for people to get is right before the project is done. I didn't know about this, and they're really upset, and they didn't have a chance. We want to hear folks right now when they can make a saying, we can make changes. There's sometimes where it's just, frankly, it can be too late. Where it's like, I understand, but we're closing in 30 days to start construction. I'm very sorry. This is that time. So we'd love to hear it. And just to talk about the news, we want we want to have folks, as a great way to reach folks is through that. Specifically folks that, yeah, if you're not on social media as frequently, it is a great spot. So feel free to keep directing to us as well. We're happy to help you.
I have another comment, kind of along the lines of Member Sandelman, about city buses. We're really counting on city buses coming up there and running to our district building. So, city buses running through your neighborhood, I would hope would be an amenity, and that maybe perhaps you'll help us make sure that that happens. With the
It's
city.
one, and that's again, one where we look back from the school board as we're going through. So we're working together on this for our different spots. We have to go through still the public process for the city. So when you have like that concern, like, hey, we want to have city buses come up here, and that's one where, we can go and pass it on. And having your voice, having this is the school district asking for this is really, that's big. It goes a long way. We can absolutely go and pass it along and say, this isn't just Saturday asking for this is also the school.
Absolutely, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I guess on those lines, Member Kirby and I are on the Intergovernmental Committee, and we have a meeting tomorrow morning with the City Council and the County Commissioners, and we've talked about this at our monthly meetings, and we'll continue to talk about the opportunities for partnership, including transportation, because we recognize the centralness of the location, and again, yes, transportation being a social determinant of health, it's an amenity. Your neighbors are the safest drivers in the city if they're school bus drivers, hopefully. So it comes up regularly in conversation. So we'll continue to advocate for that.
Thank you. And as part of sharing the website information, I will update the presentation so that this portion has a link to the website so the public, if they're viewing this, since this will be a public document on our board work. Lots of good cheering there. They're excited. And since this is public, a little detail that I noticed here and of interest, wondering if it's initial concept or if it's far along, but I noticed a cable car and gondola stop, which seems really pretty incredible.
Yes, I can comment on that. So it is one where several folks have mentioned frankly, to be clear, when I first heard about cable car, I was like, okay. Well, sure. But then hearing more and more, like it's one where a lot of this is future proofing. This is a multi-year phase project, and this is one, I've even showing, are you guys paying for this? We want to show that there's a spot if this is to occur. I did not think it was actually had some legs. Some people are saying it has for traction. What we want to show is there's a place for it. Again, we're early on in this process, and what can happen is we're one. The district be able to say, hey, we like to see this. We have the city saying, this is a few spots we can go and have this part of it. So again, that's why we want to show those as opportunities. Okay, this is where something could go. And if they say, no, now it's not the right time. If you can future-proof great, if you can really plan for it better, that's what a lot of this process is.
Thank you.
It'd be awesome. So don't get me wrong, but yeah.
Cool.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, get that here.
Yes, I know. They're sharing this. More spirited. Right?
Yeah.
Just a few updates, and thank you again for those were the updates on our properties. When I want to remind folks that this month, October, is National Principals Appreciation Month, and we're appreciating our principals. We know that the role of principal is a very, very important role in improving instruction for our kids, keeping kids safe, and really is one of the biggest determinants of what the outcomes are for our students. And I would say, especially during the past 18 months when we've been dealing with our pandemic issues, the role of principal has been something that has had more pressure, more stress, and more work. And so our appreciation for our principals this month is even greater than normal. I also want to recognize that we went through a hiring process for our human resources director, and we're going to be basically we've completed our all of the paperwork, and so it is relatively official, but we'll be bringing forward the human resources director recommendation to the board, and the individual will be coming forward has very extensive experience in larger organizations. So I think that the board and public will be very pleased. We also, as Aaliyah noted and others, we have so many amazing things going on, so many sporting events, so many activities, so many clubs, that there are just countless opportunities for people to get involved. And I think that that people are feeling very, very grateful for those opportunities, and we can't wait to have even more. I did have a meeting this afternoon as well, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in the Safe Learning Plan, but just making sure that we're doing what we need to when it comes to things like plays, assemblies, concerts that are coming up. So we're planning for all of those things so that we can do so safely. So those positive activities are really a strong focus for us. And then I would also say focusing on increasing positive behavior. Some of our students, as Aaliyah had noted, are facing challenges. They've been away from the classroom for over 18 months and quite often have not been in classrooms. And so we are, like many other districts across the state and across the nation, particularly in urban settings, we are facing more behavior challenges than in other locations. But we do have a strong team working together, particularly here at Denfeld. We're hiring a new assistant principal. We're adding 2 dean of student positions to support behavior there as well. And we're also focusing on positive behavior, working with our student groups and student bodies on those aspects of improving the behavior that we're seeing. So together, working with the Duluth Police Department through their School Resource Officer Program, working with our administrative team here, and by adding additional resources, as well as the district administration, we've spent quite a bit of time here too, making sure that we have additional supports in place so that things can be done to support our students. Those are some of the things that we've been working on related to behavior, but I wanted to acknowledge that as well.
Superintendent, I guess.
And I'll pause there for any additional questions, and I think Mr. Bonds, you have something to add after. Would you like to?
No.
Go ahead.
I just wanted you to also mention the fact that we also added 2 supervisory pairs as well. So 2 deans have been added, as well as 2 supervisory paraprofessional positions have also been added as well to support the building.
Thank you. And we've also received additional grants for Project Aware and mental health supports, and we've done outreach to community partners like Men as Peacekeepers and other entities as far as working with our student body as we continue to move forward. I would say, as others have, 95 to 97% of our students are doing great things and doing everything they need to do it right. It's a small percentage that are struggling, but we want to make sure that the supports are there for those students who are struggling. And it's not just a punitive aspect, that it's also intended to help foster positive behavior.
So just to clarify, what the vice principal hire is to replace, right?
Yes.
And then the 2 deans, so Denfeld will have a principal, 2 vice principals, and 2 deans.
Yes.
Actually, there's already
Okay,
one.
there's 1 dean already, you're right.
So they're going to have 3.
Okay, thank you.
We're also looking at, we're doing work in our upcoming professional development days on crisis de-escalation, on other restorative conversation work with our staff and others to build up capacity there, because we know it's been challenging. Members at home.
Yes, thank you, Superintendent Magus. How are we hiring these deans, or how are we going about this without impacting the classroom, where we're creating a situation where now we've got teaching positions that are going to be challenging to fill? Can you help me understand that?
Sure. Some of our hires have been from out of district. Our upcoming assistant principal hire, he's somebody from out of district that has extensive experience. Some of our dean positions that we're hiring for as well. But it is important for us to go ahead and understand how.
Well, it just seems that the dean of student positions usually come from within the ranks and are and know the students, they know those kids. And so hiring from outside can create a little more difficulty, I guess, with those students learning to know and or trust this new person.
No,
I'm go ahead.
No, I agree that there can be challenges there. I was just saying that not everybody is coming from within our classrooms, but there are individuals who are likely to be strongly considered for those positions who are staff members here. And we have to realize that our first priority comes from the classroom teacher. So in general, when I've been part of such hiring, and I'm assuming it's going to go the same way, we would not pull somebody from a classroom until we have a qualified individual hired and trained on to work within that position as well. So there wouldn't be a situation where we're taking away a classroom teacher before we have a classroom teacher hired and trained and ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent Vegas, thank you.
And then, Member Peter.
So just because I couldn't catch the numbers quick, so the assistant principal is a replacement,
Yes,
and we're adding, are any of the deans replacements, or are they deans in addition?
there are 2 additional deans, but
Okay.
we had 1 dean in place. So last year we had 1 dean and 2 assistant principals. This year we will have 2 assistant principals and 3 deans.
Okay, and then the supervisory pairs are that 2+ from where currently, so
Yes.
pairs are going to be, okay. Thank you. And then the other question I had for you, I've had a lot of families come up and ask what we're doing because they're just concerned, right?
Mhm.
So what is the district's plan to communicate this work that's being done to let our parents know and our students know that we're going to be here to support them, and these are the mitigation strategies
Sure.
that we're using?
No, very good question. And I know that Kathy Erickson is not here anymore. She was here
Oh, she
earlier.
was here.
Oh, she is? Okay. There you are. Oh, not Kathy Erickson. I was looking for Katie Kaufman. Katie Kaufman is not here anymore. Katie Kaufman has been working with the Denville principal, Tom Tuscan, on his communications. We've been working with him as well to make sure that the parents are informed as to what we're doing, what the situation is, and how we're moving forward.
So
But I do
these
think it's important for us
communications
to
have gone
continue.
out?
Pardon?
So we've communicated.
Communication has gone out through the weekly updates from Mr. Tuscan, but I think that they're working on some additional communication on that. I don't think that went out on Friday, but was coming out this week. Is that correct, Mr. Bond?
That's correct. They are working on some additional communication.
So so parents that have been approaching me, so I can direct them to where do I need to direct them for this updated information?
Can I chime in just a
No,
little bit?
I would just, let me just quick finish.
I-
So where, from this point, just, I'm curious, just because I'd like to send some emails back and then get,
No, I'd say that reaching out directly to Principal Tuscan, it should be coming through the weekly
okay,
opportunity. But I'm not sure if my understanding is it was coming out within the weekly bulletins as normal, but being informed of that way. But if there was a need for additional resources, we want to make sure that Principal Tuscan has all the resources needed
absolutely.
to communicate, because we want to answer those questions too for our families so that they understand where we're at.
Thank you, thank you, Superintendent.
Appreciate it.
I'll just piggyback, and I'm sorry to interrupt. I just know because I coach in this building, I have the emails, and I was going to reach out to Principal Tuscan to ask if I could share this letter with board members, because we are often asked. And he sent out a letter yesterday that, for me, I just know it went to the staff because conferences were last night. And so Principal Tuscan wanted to make sure that this information, and it was pretty extensive, and I thought it was just really a very heartfelt letter, as well as in his newsletters the last 2 weeks has directed information about steps. That's why I knew that the building administration has been in this building as subbing in classrooms and hall supervisions, from everyone from the superintendent to our curriculum directors to our safe and learning staff have been here, because I've seen it in the emails and the newsletters that he sends out. But the letter that he sent out, I really would like to try to pursue if he would be comfortable sharing it with board members so that we can see what they're hearing, and then it would help us when we have communication. But and I think he's still planning more, and I'm glad that you're supporting that. But I guess just from my experience being in the building, I have at least read things, so.
I agree, and I will ask Assistant Superintendent Bonds to contact Principal Tuscan to share the letter with the board.
I was just gonna piggyback off that and say that, maybe you could encourage principals of any building, when they send out their letters, to their parents, that if it contains information that would be useful to board members that get contacted by parents, to know that they send it to us anytime or just add it to their mailing list permanently. I wouldn't mind getting 13 different emails about what's happening in schools weekly, because that's important to know, as a board member. My only concern about, Principal Tuscan sending this to parents in the building is that our community at large isn't getting that information, and we really need to, inform the community that doesn't have kids going here and may not be connected in that way, because they're the ones that are getting really upset seeing police cars here a lot, or hearing about the disruptions and, the rumors and the people talking about what's going on, and they don't have a way to find the answers. And so I don't know how to do that, but I strongly suggest that we figure something out, because it's that community that needs to support Denville too.
I agree, and that's really part of the reason why I added it to my superintendent's update. Is a very small first step in that communication process, because I think it's important for the pandemic affected many different kids in many different ways, and for us to be able to lift from this situation, it's going to take the work of the whole community and engaging community partners, engaging parents, engaging families, not just Denville. I know from speaking with administrators in most other larger districts, there are some pretty significant challenges right now in this regard, but that's not an excuse. That's a call to action, call to working together. I also think it's important for us to reach out and work with some of the larger national entities that are working on these issues too, because there are, if this is something that many schools in the country are facing, how can we make sure that we're banding together to learn from the best and brightest as far as what is working in other locations? We've got great hardworking people here too. They can probably teach people a thing or two as well about what's working. But this needs to be a community effort to lift this together as well.
Aaliyah, or Member Bartley.
I guess I'd just like to know, like, what is district policy with kids that are the common denominator in all of these problems? Because as a student, it's really frustrating when it's big news that we're not having a fight at school, or there's some kind of altercation. I mean, just today during when someone pulled up the phone and 2 minutes before there's been a big fight in the classroom, and it's every single day. And I just feel like it's always the same kids, and it's frustrating being a senior, and this is how my final year at dental is when it's never been like this. So what is district policy with these kids?
We do have our district handbook for discipline, which also has a list of progressive discipline measures. Suspension is one of those measures that could be considered. We've also had the board consider expulsion in certain circumstances, and I don't want to go too deep into the details because of the personally identifiable nature of those things. But we have actually, there has to be support and there has to be consequence. And we are being heavier with consequences than we have probably ever in the past, but we also don't want to do so to the point where we're unfairly treating people either. We have to make sure that we're thinking about this as how are we able to change students' behavior. When we are there, like I said, it's probably 3 to 5%, probably 3% would probably be the better estimate of how many the kids that are having the greatest number of issues. Those are students with whom the counselors are working specifically, with whom we're setting up check and connect partnerships, and with whom we're working with the families to look at outside resources in addition to those consequences. Because I honestly believe we won't, even though we want to have a a firm yet caring hand, we won't punish our way out of this either. We need to make sure that we're thinking about this from a supportive lens as well. And Assistant Superintendent Bonds has been working with a group on looking at alternatives to suspension option for students, so that there would be perhaps a location separate from Denfeld, where if students who are struggling quite a bit with behavior, we can work with them on their academics and also work with them on building back up some of their resilience and ability to perform successfully in school with guidance and with support. So it would be done as a supportive transitional measure. But we also want to make sure that we're not, we're not completely going to decriminalization right off the bat for things that need to be taught and redirected. But we also have to think about the greater good of the whole school too. So it's a delicate balance. But I think there have been some pretty serious consequences. We are likely to see our suspension rates here at Denfeld and at other schools potentially, but across the country, we're likely to see some of those suspension rates higher, and it might result in some disproportionality too. And we are concerned about that, but we also have to make sure that we're dealing with the situation here.
Member Trinka, and then Member Lafayette. Yeah, I'm going to try to, figure out a way to recognize, so I am kind of looking, so make that hand.
She wants to hold up our red.
Yeah.
There's the color help. We did that the other day. Thank you, Member Bartling, for bringing that up. Your perspective is really valuable, and frankly is one that I haven't necessarily heard a lot about what's happening at Denfeld, except for what I hear in the news review, but I know that that's happening at a lot of other schools as well. And it is, to Superintendent Magus's point, we are living in a time of trauma, and we are seeing that so profoundly in our students. And it's scary. It's scary to see the way that some of these students are acting out, because that's a learned behavior or whatever that might be. I think it's really important, though, that at this moment, at this stress test, we check our values, recognizing that to write a ticket to a student of color has different lifetime ramifications than to write a white student, a ticket that enters them into the juvenile justice system. So I think it's really, really important that we not fight our way out of this. We not adjudicate. We don't juvenile justice system our way out of this. We look at ways to support the whole student, the whole family, the whole community, recognizing that we can't do this on our own as a school district. We have to approach this from a community standpoint, and we're all burned out. Everybody is burned out. Fatigue is real. So I appreciate that you're looking at alternative sites. That's really good news. I would say probably the faster we can speed that up, the better, because it is scary. I'm hearing about fights happening at other schools too, and as a parent, it scares me to hear about that from my child. And you don't want to send your most precious, loving thing in the world to an unsafe place when we've been doing that for 18 months. But I think, like I said, we have to check our values, and we have to remember that just because it's hard doesn't give us a pass to not do what's right. In fact, now is the time, more so than ever, to really live out those values of equity in the district.
Thank you. And I wholeheartedly agree. And Assistant Superintendent as well as the entire team have been working on that. And I believe that I started in administration, and I believe Mr. Bonds did, and others too, during a time of zero tolerance when things were so black and white and it was so consequence based. And I do believe that there's a place for negative consequences at times, but I don't believe that should ever be our primary tool. We should always be seeking other more holistic ways of looking at the whole child and thinking about how we're supporting somebody in being successful, whether it's through community outreach, whether it's through mental health supports, whether it's through social emotional intervention groups. There are a wide variety of ways that this needs to be addressed. And this is something that is new. It's new for the nation, it's new for Denfeld, it's new for the district as far as having our students return with such a high degree of trauma. And it's important for us not to solely rely on what tools of the past we used, but to look at what are the innovative schools and innovative districts doing related to changing behavior. And that's part of what we're doing with our team, is really trying to look at it from that perspective, because it would be, I think some people would want us to, let's expel 30 kids and put them in jail, right? But if we did that, that would not take care of the situation fairly, and it would not be equitable, and result in really unfair outcomes for many. Understand?
No, I'm sorry, it's
Oh,
Member
sorry.
Love Kemp,
Okay.
and then it's me, and then it's Member Sandholm.
I'm sorry.
So as you kind
You're
of
on the
raise your
list.
hand, I'm,
Sorry.
Thank you. Really good discussion, and I really want to kind of follow up to something Member Oswald said, where my mind was going as well, Member Oswald, but about reaching out to the broader community to just let them know what we're doing. And I'm also particularly want to make sure that we're reaching out to the Lincoln Park families and the feeder schools that come into Denfeld, just so those families also that are coming into this school in a few years even are aware of how we're responding. I think that's really important. And then I'm just wondering, we've kind of mentioned the family handbook a bit, and we obviously talked about that at the board level when
Sure.
we're looking at it, but are you revisiting that some with students and just so, and with families, so they can have any kind of discussions on what's in that handbook and guidelines and, being aware? I guess I just kind of make that suggestion as well, that it's an opportunity to remind people to look over that handbook and understand it.
I agree, and that's something that we're working with, and also something that the Denfeld staff has done with the students through reteaching opportunities. But I think it's important that, and I know that's been done somewhat with families as far as recognition of where we are and what our rules are and what we're trying to address. But I think it's also an opportunity for us to broaden that conversation beyond just the walls of Denfeld, because I think one thing, when I hear people address what is it that they're most proud of in Duluth Public Schools, one of the things I hear again and again is the community support. The community really cares about our schools, they really care about our students. And I think it's important for us to work together with the full community to make sure that we're moving past this challenging phase for everyone.
so I'm next, and then Member Sandholm, and is there someone else I would want me to put on the list? Or something might come up before that. So again, I just want to thank you, because I have heard, because of my involvement here at Denfeld, of the incredible support that we've had from our downtown. So, I've been a part of the Denfeld community for a long time, and we asked for this. At my very first year, here, we knew that Denfeld had some higher needs, and so there was requests, and so I'm really excited that we've added these 2 deans, 2 paras. Sometimes there will be some thought that, could we have used more teachers and lower class size, and that maybe classrooms become, easier to structure with our kids. But I'm going to say that I think the addition to the deans and the paras, I'm hoping that we're going to get people to apply. I think that they have been posted, or they're going to be posted. They're not filled yet. So if you see that coming through, that they are getting filled, just a note to us. I don't think it has to be anything formal. Would be great, so that we know that there were qualified people and we're getting those paraprofessionals in the hallway. My ask would be that I know it's a future thing, but again, looking at Denfeld and our Western community schools, I really hope that the funding for these positions stay robust, because I think that this community has always wanted, more presence. And so I don't know where we're going with that, but I hope they're not temporary positions. I know they maybe have to be. Are they going to be listed, CFO Erickson, as ESSER monies, or so it's gonna say 1 year or 2 year positions? That's going to hurt the, I think, who steps forward for those maybe, or limits, but I understand that. I do, and we're just appreciative, and we're building up. But these kinds of positions in some of the schools that I know I have experience with, not that other schools across the district couldn't use some extra support, but I do think that this is good use of our money. And when comp dollars come back, but that will be a part of the finance committee, so.
So I think it's important as we put the temporary positions in, that we also address, I think it was member Trinka that said we should use our ESSER funding partly in thinking about iterative design. If we're trying something and it's working,
Yeah.
then do we need to reprioritize another expenditure so that we can continue doing something that's working? So if the deans are having strong positive impact, then we need to have conversation about what could be shifted. But I also know that there's the fiscal realities of the district as far as the tightness of budget and where we're at. And we want to make sure that things are sustained. The safety and student learning are our top priorities. And if we have to guarantee safety. And I think it's important for us to make sure that we're so through this process.
Member Sandholm, and then Member Eater.
Yes, thank you, Chair Leopold. I just want to add or emphasize the importance of ALC as part of this, and that hopefully they get up and running as quickly as possible and have enough space in the proper space to meet the needs of our students that are struggling. It's a way we keep our kids in school and provide classroom opportunities for them. And that staff at ALC, they are the experts that we have in our district with some of our most troubled students. So again, hopefully we're giving that staff at ALC the proper support and again enough space so that they can help us through this challenging time.
I agree. It'll be important for the ALC staff to take on and help us support with some of those students that are most challenged at this point. And I know that they have a deep skill set in doing so. And so I think that that'll be important.
And then Member Eater, and then Member Hawthorne.
Member Bartling, do you feel like you're getting your questions answered? You're the closest to this situation right now because you're walking the halls of Denfeld right now. So do you feel like you're getting the answers you need and the support that you need? And what is it that we can do to help advocate?
I think the one thing is there like something that we can do at Lincoln beforehand, like a preventative measure, so then this doesn't get to Denfeld? Because I don't like that we're living up to this reputation that we have, that since I've been here, literally has not been like that at all. So I guess I'm just wondering, is there something we can do at Lincoln before these kids get to Denfeld? But otherwise, yes.
And Member Loughlin.
Yeah, and on that same train of thought, that's where I was going in terms of also involving our Duluth full service community schools, which we have. If there's roles that they could play, I happen to be on the websites of the different sites for our full service community schools today, and I was just again really impressed with some of the community connections and relationships that they have, and so we can involve the collaborative in whatever ways in the staff that are at each of the sites and their parent advisory. I don't know if they're called parent advisory board anymore, but the community advisory board. Each of the sites have that, so that might be just another way to get that community helping support and educate and be involved.
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you.
And I do think that there are some practice changes that have already taken place at Lincoln Park. So I think that, they have a model with a greater number of deans. They've done some things with the restorative practice. So I'm anticipating that the students that are coming forward it's not to say that the students now are deficient in any way. We just want to make sure that they've come out of a really, really tough time, and we got to make sure that we're putting the scaffolding around them to be successful, and that we continue. It starts from elementary through middle school and through high school, and those the way that we want to help support students so that they can be the dental hunter that we want them to be as a senior. It starts in
Thank you. And I just want to answer a little bit from my perspective off our campus. You know, the reviewing of the handbook, teachers are given actual lesson plans to cover in our classes and in our WIN. I'm sure Member Sandholm remembers too that would either be part of our homeroom or part of our WIN opportunity now is, and we'd have to go so far as kind of have the kids sign that especially some of the more sensitive handbook information, we need to validate that students have heard that policy or those directions. So it's chunked out, and that's pretty much what we do for the first a week and a half to 2 weeks is to review the student handbook. But the parents should also do it too. And I just want to show back to Sandholm too, Member Sandholm, is that ALC is got to be part of our moving forward and opportunities. I look forward to, you know, Nathan Goldley's leadership there too, to really bring in. As a former teacher here, I do want to have strong ALC abilities and the principals working together for that. One of the things that, you know, I would hope that we continue to work with, because I know that ninth graders, I just want you to know I taught ninth grade for 30 plus years there in Iowa, all of themselves, and there have been many studies throughout all of my years here that ninth grades present some issues and some problems. And sometimes we just like to build a building and put ninth graders there and do that. But ALC currently only takes 10 through 12, and I'd really like us to look at that as a way to help our schools, is that to expand that to a ninth grade through 12th grade opportunity for ALC. Member Lockwood.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that, Cheryl. But, you know, just back to the handbook, and not to go on about the handbook, but, you know, certainly as a parent who has had 4 kids, I know the process that the district has used at the beginning of the year to kind of educate students and that, and I really appreciate the role that the teachers play in doing that. But this was an unusual year, right? And last year, we weren't in person where that happened in the same way. And so those 9th graders and those 8th graders, and the 6th graders, it all was a different process. So I guess I just really, again, think it's an opportunity again to review it in lots of different ways, and again, engage the parents in lots of different ways, or the care providers of our kids in lots of different ways with that handbook. So thank you for that explanation, members.
Member Trinka.
Yeah, thank you. This is going to be off topic, but I only have 2 more meetings after this, and so I was going to say it. This is the same conversation that we had in October 2001 when I was a senior at Central, and so I think that you know, these are 2 different options, but or 2 different topics to a certain extent, but and we Aaliyah had the same reputation at Central that we were such a bad school, and we weren't. It was fantastic, but you get labeled with something and then it sticks. And we know that Denfeld's a fabulous school. 3 of our school board members are Denfeld alumni. So I think that, you know, the work that Assistant Superintendent Bonds is leading with the SRO initiatives and some of the racial and equity discussions that we're having across the community, I think we really need to take advantage of that to finally make some lasting change around that divide in our community and have those hard conversations that we don't want to have as Minnesotans in order to make some effective change in this community. So that's all I have to say.
The floor is yours now.
So that's it for the quick updates portion. I apologize. And I probably, as I was adding it on, I knew it would probably lead to some really great conversation. And I want the board to know that this is by no means the last opportunity for this conversation. We'll be sharing much more in the coming weeks and months with not just the board, but with the community as well. But regarding our safe learning plan, and I only laughed because it was titled Quick Updates and I didn't mean to go up that far. So our COVID rates with our safe learning plan, we are now, the official release for this week is at 46.92. There's a pretty significant increase projected for this next week that will be reported. The unofficial numbers are up quite a bit. And in talking with the county health department, they're seeing a lot of stress in a lot of districts with spread, with some of the supply chain issues, with some of the employee shortages. And I heard from one individual who said it seemed as though, not in our district, but it seemed as though it was maybe one of the harder weeks of the pandemic for many schools. And so I think it's important for us to remember that all this is going on at the same time too. As far as some updates related to the Safe Learning Plan, some testing updates and vaccine updates. This is some positive news. We've received our state-provided home test kits, and we are finalizing our communication and procedures for use. So there's some limited usage, but before that's widespread and systemic, we're polishing that communication and process and about to launch that. We've also applied for additional funding for testing for staff and plan to share even more information on those programming in the very near future. So expect an update on our testing. But we heard, something that we wanted to do was something that the board had expressed to, why not take advantage of the testing? We are taking advantage of the testing. And then vaccine update. This is very exciting news, and it's not totally official yet, but it's based on shareable information from our county health department that they anticipate new guidance in the coming week related to vaccines for 5 to 11-year-olds, and that they're very optimistic that vaccines could be up and running by the end of November, possibly even before the longer holiday weekend. And that we would also plan for our voluntary vaccine clinics at our schools, working with our partners. I know that we've already had multiple conversations about what that should look like. So we'll be ready as soon as the vaccines are available to have those voluntary clinics for parents who signed off. So that's coming up very soon. Regarding quarantine, this is kind of lengthy, but there are a few slides on quarantine. We continue to review and revise as new guidance comes out, and basically listing the information here that we do continue to work on our quarantine practices, and that at times we continue to, and we may require quarantine depending on the situations that we face. Related to close contacts, students and staff identified as close contact of somebody who is tested positive for COVID and who do not meet the quarantine exception criteria must quarantine for 10 days from the last date of exposure to that person. So if somebody is unvaccinated and they have fallen into that range as far as needing quarantine, there is a requirement for that 10 days. Now, if symptoms develop during the quarantine, the identified person of a close contact must be tested for COVID-19. A negative COVID-19 test will not shorten the quarantine period. So we are having a full 10 days for our students. So we're beefing up things a little bit with the quarantine, but we're also doing some things with testing and the vaccine pieces. And positive test results must be reported to the school health office. That's on page 6 of our Safe Learning. Household contacts, and this, sometimes people wonder, if you have a household issue and somebody might be quarantined, how does that pertain to the individual? So I thought I'd share information there. If a household member has tested positive for COVID-19, unvaccinated household contacts must stay home and quarantine during the 10-day isolation period. So if somebody is not vaccinated, they need to quarantine. The quarantine period for unvaccinated household contacts will extend past the 10 days for an additional 10 days if needed. If symptoms develop anytime during the quarantine period, the household contact must be tested for COVID-19. A negative test does not shorten the quarantine period again. Positive test results again need to be reported to schools. And vaccinated household contacts do not need to quarantine unless symptoms develop. So let's just say we have a mom and a dad who are vaccinated and an older brother or sister who are vaccinated. If there's a younger child at home and somebody comes home as a family member with COVID, the younger child who wasn't vaccinated would have to quarantine, but the others would not unless they develop symptoms. And then some questions. Go ahead.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
And so I understand kind of the household contact, but was there discussion on if any of our teams, kind of the team concept of someone testing positive for COVID?
It really, we're looking at them as more individual situations now as opposed to having a blanket statement, just because it gets, when we create the black and the white related to this, it really, we need to really address the situations individually. So if there was a team situation where, let's say, everybody was together on the bus and nobody had masks on, everybody was eating, and 30% of the kids, only 30% of the kids had been vaccinated, that situation might be different than if everybody was mask wearing on a short bus ride and nearly everybody was vaccinated. So it depends partly on those circumstances.
You might want to clarify that. I don't.
Sure.
Not thinking about that.
I think that's a really, really good point.
Yeah.
I think this next part is probably not going to be something that everybody, it's a clarification of what we do for education during quarantine. And at first, before I even explain, want to remind people that we are not in a place with the state or with the state or federal guidance related to being able to provide wider hybrid learning. That's not part of what we're able to do this year, nor are we offering distance learning outside of certain resources. But we do want to make sure that our students have a good opportunity for education while they're quarantined. And the way we're doing so is the following. So elementary students will be considered as having an excused absence while in quarantine. Teachers will initially offer up to 3 days of learning opportunities for the students, depending on length for any length of the quarantine. Those learning opportunities could consist of worksheets, activities, at-home work, or and will be based on reviewing prior content only. So it's not intended to be replacement new learning. It's intended to keep the student based and keep the student involved. Students will not be required to return the work to school unless otherwise directed by the teacher. That's for elementary. And students, there won't be synchronized learning while quarantined with that excuse. So we don't have an equal number of teachers to just provide that work. And so this is what most other districts are having to do related to this situation. Do I wish that every student was going to get a perfect synchronized lesson when they're quarantined? I certainly do. But that's not the reality of the situation, unfortunately, at this time. For K-12 students, again, students will be considered as having excused absence. The learning management system to continue the learning, posting and turning in of assignments, engaging in instruction, engaging in discussion, those are important pieces that can be done through the campus system at the secondary level. The teachers need to make sure that they're accommodating students and families who request paper-based materials. We know that we have connectivity issues and we might have parents who don't have that access, and so we must provide the paper copies as needed. Also, students will not be provided synchronous or asynchronous new instruction. That's not something that we can do at the same time. I'm sure, though, many teachers are reaching out and trying to provide those supports to the greatest degree possible. And then quarantined students will have accommodation for extended deadlines out there as well.
So for the students, recognizing that I completely understand this from a teaching standpoint, we don't have the capacity. I'm thinking about the committee of the whole meeting that we had where we went through last year's test scores, as well as having gone through a recent quarantine experience, some of the anxiety that's induced about going back to school after that while not having learned the content alongside their peers. Is there something that we can do while utilizing maybe the CSS tutors to help get those students caught back up, especially if they have to do the 10 days and then the 10 days?
I think the CSS tutoring is part of what can be accessed. I think it's important from the teaching and learning perspective, and Mr. Bonds, you might have additional comment too, as far as how the principals are working with the teachers and how the teachers will be working with the students as they're coming back from longer quarantine to make sure they're catching up. And I knew this question might come up today, and because it's a question, but it's something we all are questioning. So as far as how the teachers will be helping students catch up once they come back.
Like normal, when students are at home sick, they have opportunities to make up work when they return. So that opportunity still exists for those students and families there, but also providing students access to tutoring support through the college is also available. It's a challenge. You know, we're trying to figure out how best to serve our students, support them while they are at home, and we're exploring every option. But at the end of the day, you know we want to keep learning going, provide them resources so that they can access, again, whether they're electronic and or paper copies. But again, students and families, they have opportunities to make up assignments when they do return. And it's not the best situation, but that's the situation that we can support at this time.
Okay. And then just a follow-up, speaking of the iterative processes, again, having hypothetically gone through this recently, are you gathering the different mechanisms and methodologies that the teachers are using for communicating with the students, getting them caught back up, providing them with content to see like how the different teachers are utilized, keeping their students engaged? Because the difference between quarantining and being home on sick days is you might be quarantined and feel just fine. And maybe you want to do your homework. So is there some sort of central repository for innovation?
Sure. I would say that one of the areas for that would be through the professional learning communities at the schools, whether it's a subject area or grade level professional community. Those aspects of professionals helping professionals and sharing what's working and sharing what's not. I think that's one means. I also think, and this is where it gets a little sticky, is we can't, even if something is a really good idea, if I want to provide a synchronized video lesson for my kids, we can't necessarily make people do that, but collecting those resources and making sure they're shared through the professional learning communities, making sure they're shared through the content specialists that we have, as well as through the principals. Those are different ways that we are doing that. Could we do a better job of doing that? I really think we could. And I'm sure that there will be activities during some of the work over the course of the next few days with professional learning and through the MEA conference, where best practices will be shared in that regard.
And just so you know, we also have through the restructuring and some of the additions that were added, we have content specialists that are on board, our curriculum coordinators that are on board, and they are also working with staff to really think about all of the different innovative ways. And they have come together really as a really solid team to figure out how, again, to think about all the different ways that we can enhance instruction in the right way, not only through the use of our technology, through the blended learning model that we have in place, but also, again, just really working with these content or curriculum area leaders are working with our content area team leaders to think about instructional practices, to think about how they can gather resources for teachers and disseminate those resources for teachers to support students in a variety of ways. So it's leveraging the expertise that we have in the staff that we have in new roles. They are really the source for innovation. they really are tapping into our teachers and trying to make some decisions on how to improve outcomes.
I think another aspect of thinking about student learning is also thinking about our students with special needs. And one thing that we're tapping into is really homebound instruction. So in situations where an individual student or an entire class is quarantined, homebound services may be put in place through the case manager for that individual. It depends, of course, on the need of the student and what the ramifications will be if the student is not afforded those supports, but we try to make sure that we have as much support there as possible as well.
Now, Member Oswald.
I have a couple of questions and one I'll just address, to what you had just mentioned about homebound. How are we going to ensure that staff aren't exposed to COVID if you're sending them to homes where they're helping COVID positive people?
Sorry to look for my answer over the side, but I know Jason Crane and
Crystal.
Crystal Deal and others are working on this quite often. Of course, there's a difference if somebody is vaccinated, but I'm sure they're putting in place additional safety measures for those situations. Not sure if you have.
Yeah, and there are guidelines that the state has also provided with regards to how they can support students at home in this manner. So there are guidelines that have been provided by the state as well as by CDC, how we can support students and families in a homebound situation. So Krista Deal, our lead nurse, is working with Jason Crane to make sure the staff who are homebound are trained in their safe manner.
I just hope that's really safe for them, because that wouldn't want to force them.
No, and I also, I'm not sure if all of the homebound instruction is actually physically homebound instruction, or if there are also probably opportunities for more remote support too, in addition to actually visiting the homes.
No, I'm glad you actually shared that because that is the case. There are also virtual options for homebound. So homebound does look a little different now. So that opportunity exists for the homebound teachers to do some things virtually, but there are opportunities when there's nice and if they can be outside with some students and families, those are opportunities. So we're relying on our homebound instructors to use good judgment and to follow guidelines to make some decisions on how best to support those individual needs of students that they need to support at home. But virtual is an option.
And I have another question that maybe CFO Erickson might be more in tune to answering. Because when I saw the 10 absences, then the possibility 10 more, that's 20 days of school. And I know that the state has the 15-day maximum before you're dropped rule. Does that apply in cases of quarantine?
I let Assistant Superintendent clarify that they're not, when you're not enrolled, they would be considered enrolled during that time. So I do believe that would not apply to be absent, but I would let Assistant Superintendent on. I know there was some clarification with the Mars folks.
I want to make sure I get so when they're home, they're actually sick. So being
You're
sick
only-
does not count.
You're only allowed 15 absences without being automatically dropped.
Right, but we as a district have, oversight over that. And I'll look into that, but I'm pretty confident that illness doesn't count as one of those things.
We can
But I will clarify.
get back to the board with an update on that.
And I just have one more question, sorry to belabor this, but, our numbers are touching 50 almost. And at this time last year, we would have been, headed out the door with everybody staying home. At what point do we seek other guidance, I guess, on what to do? At what point are we actually hurting our community more by staying in school and making everybody stay home? And I know we can't do that without the governor's help on that. but, you know, are we just monitoring those numbers just to watch them go up and, you know, if they hit 200 again, then we're like, oh boy, okay.
I think I would, and I share your concern. And I also have pressed at the state level too for greater guidance on these things. And I think that that's not just been done by Duluth. It's, you know, the various professional organizations are really seeking additional state guidance, because when each individual district is left to their own devices to come up with their own guidance, that's when things get very contradictory. But I would also to think about the public and think about things from something that might give people a little bit of peace of mind. We are very, very carefully watching spread within schools too. So when the rates are going up, we're watching to see how many students in each classroom are getting ill, and how many cases of spread we have within a particular school. And we're also in consultation on a very regular basis, multiple times a week, if not sometimes multiple times a day, with the county health department to make sure that we're staying within a range of safety. So I would say that if there's a range of being safe and taking risks, we're solidly trying to stay in that safest range. But we're frequently having conversation about what does this mean? What's the safety piece that we need to consider? And actually it does play into part of the next slide, as far as sometimes when we are going to do everything we can do to stay open for our students, it means that we have to say no to some other things that we might want to say yes to.
Just a quick question here. So I have a second grader, and if he's in quarantine, what does that look like for instruction for him?
Sure. So for instruction for a second grader, it basically the student would be excused from the learning, and there would be at least 3 days of instructional materials that would be provided. It would be meant more as enrichment and engagement rather than new learning for the second grade. And we also recognize that different parents have different situations as far as what they're able to do to provide support. So that's part of the reason why it's not intended as all second graders need to have asynchronous instruction during this time, and they're supposed to keep up by themselves magically, because that isn't going to happen either. But it is important for us to make sure that we are having reach out, that there's communication from the school, that there's the sharing of those resources with the parent and with the student, and then also flexibility there.
When you say those resources, what resources do you mean? Like resources in terms of like their, the work that they would be doing, is that correct?
Sure.
And then when he comes back to school, then what does that look like for support?
And basically, it's in some ways similar to if there is an illness. And it also depends too, if an entire class is quarantined, quite often if an entire class is quarantined, then the teacher is able to work with those students and teach in a synchronous and asynchronous way that is different than if it's a couple of students that are quarantined. And I wish I could guarantee the same quality of experience in each of those circumstances, but we simply are not able to do so. But there is an expectation that the materials are shared with the parents, whether in second grade it's different because they have less access to the devices as some of the older elementary students. That's why the ability to share paper packets and other art material access is important for those families as well. But as far as the instruction goes, there's an expectation that there's at least 3 days or three days of activities for that student during that time period. Again, it's not going to be the same as being in school for those 10 days.
Does that mean like the first 10 days and then let's say that it's extended, would that be 3 days for that entire quarantine regardless of length?
My understanding would be it would be 3 days.
Correct, for every 10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
every
3 days for
quarantine.
the first 10, 3 days for the second.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Appreciate it.
See no other,
I'm sorry. Did you go over the last slide?
No, I was going
Oh, okay,
to.
okay. I have a question about it, but go ahead. You
No,
may ask.
And when Member Oswald had mentioned, what are we doing to make sure that we're staying open? Everybody is so hungry to return to normalcy. Everybody we want to be able to have our masks off. We want to be able to have assemblies. We want to be able to have concerts. There are many, many things that we want to be able to return to that normalcy. But we are still in a pandemic and the rates are still quite high. And we also have some things that are exacerbating circumstances this year far more than last. And those are on the final slide. Thinking about its employee shortages as well as supply chain shortages. You're hearing a lot, and we haven't been hit too hard with our supply chain shortages in certain areas. But when we think about food supply for our cafeterias, when we think about cleaning and other supplies, all of those supply chain issues are building supplies. Those are things that are hitting across the country and world quite hard. Particularly right now, the employee shortages are something that we're struggling with and other districts are. We have shortages of paraprofessionals. We have shortages of food service workers. We have challenges with bus drivers, as we've brought forward a few times. And then also thinking about our custodial needs that we have there too. And I think the custodial piece, we're significantly short custodians right now. And I know that there is a huge interest in opening our elementary schools. We want to open those gyms for activities. We know there are a lot of outside groups that are just really wanting to use those facilities. And I know the board has received many, many emails related to that, and so have I. And my heart goes out to the community members and students and athletes who aren't able to use those facilities. We did explore, because we're trying to create like what would be a medium ground. We did explore the possibility of opening at least one elementary on the east side and one elementary on the west side for gym use so that we could expand that. But when we talked about that with our facilities crew, they really believe that we're at a bare bones place, not just for staffing, but also that if we're allowing lots of new people in, especially when the case rates are so high, that we can't guarantee the safety. And so those two things balance. It's the strong recommendation of our facilities crew, Dave Spooner and Kathy Erickson, and I support their recommendation and that we can't open those gyms at this time, even though we very, very much would like to. So those are some of the things that are stressing the system, but we're looking at new and innovative ways of trying to meet those needs in those areas too. That concludes.
Would you add substitute teachers to that para food transportation facility, or how are we doing with substitute?
Yes, I would add substitute
Okay.
teachers to
I
that.
would think.
I was kind of thinking of non-certified positions,
yeah.
but I've actually been working with, there's a team of us who have been working on our substitute system, the frontline system, making sure that that's up and running as clearly as it can be. There's some work behind the scenes that's being done. As you know, I'm doing work more now with human resources. So working with the HR team, working with the principals, cleaning up those data structures that are behind the scenes that are impacting that system. But we also have to look at what are we doing related to advertising and recruiting and retaining our substitutes. They need to know that they are, in the previous district, we refer to them as our guest teachers, because I think, a sub doesn't, it's not necessarily the glamorous term, but we want to think about these are people who we respect, that we're glad that they're here, they're teaching our kids. How are we onboarding those individuals so that they have the training needed, so that they feel safe, that they know how to work with kids with challenges? Those are all things that are really important for us as well.
Thanks for that background. And just as a sub in our district, Kathy, I do like the new sub reporting system and the ease of that page and the ability to see the jobs. That's a big improvement. So thank you.
And I guess I would say to our community at large that we have, anybody with a 4-year degree is able to serve as a substitute. So if you're willing and interested, and we would more than glad to have you part of our team. Member Sandholm.
Yes, thank you, Superintendent Magus. Chair Lofold, I'll echo your comment on Skyward. I did finally got in, and I had a chance to experience it, and I do like it. I hope our subs find it helpful and useful, and a good working tool for their purposes. But my question is back to gyms and the opening of our gyms. Are middle school and high school gyms open for weekend use for our community?
There is some access and open use, and I have talked to CFO Erickson about potentially extending that. CFO, we had talked a little bit about Lincoln Park and where we're at there, because we don't, if we can say yes to things, we're going to say yes. But if we can't, we can't stress the system more. Anything you would add there?
So right now we are doing all school-sponsored activities. We do not have outside groups that are not associated with the district right now due to capacity issues.
Okay, so it's basic. The middle school and high school gyms are open for school-sponsored sports programs or activities, but not community uses for club sports, club basketball, club volleyball, or whatever. Is that right?
If there's openings that we can fill them in, but we have so many school-sponsored activities, we really don't have a whole lot of extra space after those activities. And then only when we have custodial coverage.
Yeah, and I understand that part of it, I guess. I know that's the big challenge here. Are we hopeful to create more opportunities for our gym rentals or gym usage within the next month or two?
We are working with the superintendent and building leaders to assess where we can. But right now, based on the COVID numbers and making sure we're providing safe and secure locations within our buildings, and making sure we have the capacity to support our buildings on a day-to-day basis versus doing those extra things right now. As our staff finds more time, we will provide more opportunities.
Yeah. Well, my understanding is that some of these clubs are renting gym space outside of our district. So are we losing money by not creating that opportunity too? Would they normally rent that space from ISD709?
We do have some organizations that would be renting, but again, we would have to be paying more for the coverage to have them cleaned. So it's not truly a large money maker for the district. It's more of a partnership to help offset the cost.
Okay, well, thank you for helping or walking us through that. I certainly hope we can create these opportunities for the students in our community and the coaches in these programs that are kind of dependent on our gym space. Thank you.
I just want to add to that discussion. I shared this with a lot of people in the community about our elementary schools and just kind of reminding the community that I believe all of our elementary schools, we have P-Zone, our after-school program that goes till 6 o'clock. So, and they're using that space as well as, again, a number of other school-based activities also at the elementary school. So it's just really important that the community knows that the gyms aren't sitting empty. We've got 100 kids in cases for our after-school programming, making use of the gyms as well. So,
and Member Trinka.
Yeah, thank you, CFO Erickson, for explaining the opportunity cost versus, the reality of the picture. I think it's also important to note we don't have ICU bed capacity in the state, and part of being a good partner in the community is also recognizing that being in a gym as well, ventilated as it is, as we enter cold and flu season, and as COVID numbers, as Member also pointed out, we would all be in bunkers at this time if the numbers had been like this a year ago. I think it's important that we be very mindful of wanting to protect the community as a whole.
And I'll just echo that, and just really, I mean, I guess I'm pleased that some of the local, our Duluth youth and coaches are able to find some space in our outside communities. I mean, it's not ideal. I mean, I guess we'd like to have them back, but we're a bigger district than a lot of our other surrounding that might have opportunities for gym usage. So I'm just really proud of the creativity of the coaches in Duluth that are doing the club or the youth sports at the elementary level, that they are able to maybe find some spaces and make it a positive experience for the students. That's really what we want. If it's not in our district, I'm really proud of the districts that surround us that support that. And we'll hope to get them back in our elementary gyms. They have been a part, haven't they, CFO Erickson? They have traditionally, before COVID, been very active in our elementary gyms throughout the whole school year and summer. So we just have to get back to that, but it might take a while.
Thank you. And I do want the board to know and the community to know that we pressed on this pretty hard. We looked at it pretty deeply. We seriously explored trying to open at least one on each end of the district, and it's just simply not feasible from a safety and capacity perspective. And so we appreciate that the board and community understands that we have to prioritize that. That concludes my.
That concludes?
I just want to jump in and thank everybody. Thanks for a follow-up on that discussion. Somewhere in there was an opportunity for Member Kirby to jump in and do a vaccine promotion, because I think one of the reasons why things aren't so problematic right now with their numbers going up is this that vaccinations are so prevalent, and hopefully we can get more people vaccinated.
Appreciate it.
So next on our agenda, board members, is just the schedule of meetings and events. And if you look at the more current one on our board book, you will see that the week of November 1st to the 5th of November, that it is on that schedule, a Wednesday monthly committee of the whole. So just a point out, location still to be determined. And I know that they're working hard. It's just, we'll be patient. We know how to drive it, and we'll get to where you tell us we're going to be. And we appreciate the hard work of trying to get us all located here too. And really a shout out to our technology department and to Executive Secretary Dolans for setting up Denfelds and getting the chairs and tables, and that will be great. So if you look at that schedule, we have nothing next week. Then we're looking at the week of the first part of November. Oh my gosh.
Sure.
So, do we have something next week?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
I was just going to say that we have our meetings in November. The first week, Wednesday is the 3rd, and that's the monthly committee of the whole. And again, I've really appreciated board members kind of feeding ideas for agenda can come for the call meeting. And I think I'm going to say something when we get to HR finance about a potential call topic that I saw come through your HR finance. But so that agenda meeting for COW is also in October, I think. So I'll have Superintendent put the date for the agenda for COW in his weekly letter to us. And then it looks like we have a policy on November 4th, and then a HR finance on November 9th. And our next November board meeting, for those of you in the community, is November 16th, right here at Denfeld at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Chair Local. And I too wanted to say thank you to Ms. Dolans as well as Ms. Canavan for all that they've been doing to keep us up to date, and especially Jackie tonight for everything you did with Bart to get things set up for our inaugural Denfeld board meeting. I also wanted to say, even though she's not here because of a family situation, just a public thank you to my executive assistant, Linda Tebow, who has served the district for 36 years and has done so much in this regard. She is an amazing person who's given so much of her professional life and beyond to the district. Since she's not here tonight, I just wanted to say a public thank you to Linda for everything she's done.
Yes. So moving on, it's number 9, it's report of standing committees. Our first committee is the committee of the whole, and I will call on Assistant Superintendent Bonds to come forward and talk a little bit about our committee of the whole meeting that was held on October 5th.
Thank you, and I will give a brief summary of that as succinctly as possible. So during the meeting, there were 3 topics. The first topic was a presentation by the Teaching, Learning, and Equity Department. It provided an update, or we provided an update regarding our student achievement data and the strategies the district is employing to improve those outcomes. We recognize as a district that while we have success in a lot of areas, we also have some significant challenges with our student performance. So during this meeting, the Teaching, Learning, and Equity Department provided an update regarding that data, as well as, again, some of those strategies we are employing to improve outcomes. And I want to say thank you to the Teaching, Learning, and Equity team for coming and giving a thorough presentation of all of the strategies we are implementing and will be employing to, again, improve those outcomes. There was another presentation provided by Mrs. William, who is our director for Head Start. She provided an annual report that needs to be given annually. And also, our federal programs director, Dr. Darren Sheldon, provided an update, but he also was looking for the board to consider serving as part of the advisory committee. So those were the 3 items that were presented at the Teaching, Learning, by Teaching, Learning, and Equity through the COW committee.
Any questions or comments about the report?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you, Assistant Superintendent, for bringing forth just a great wealth of information to us. And I know all of the many staff that presented, put a lot of time into those presentations. And I really invite the public, well, we weren't able to video record it. It was recorded, and there was just some excellent information presented at the COW meeting on just many initiatives we're doing and strategies we're using, and it just was a wealth of great information, and just to hear it again. So thank you for pulling that off and bringing everybody together. I really appreciated the handouts as well. So
Thank you. And the presentation was added to the board book if someone from the committee would like to access the PowerPoint. The information is there.
All 74 pages of it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the review of the policy committee meeting, and I'll turn it over to Chair of the Policy, Member Lockwood.
Well, our meeting was held on October 19th. It was short and sweet, but we really had 2 items on our agenda. We did not have any policies for the first reading. We did for the second, and that's the NSBA model policy 31, the Pledge of Allegiance, which we already approved the first reading of. And and again, the purpose, the statement of the policy exceptions are being true of this policy. And that will be on our consent agenda. And then the second item is the policies for suspension, and it deals with graduation requirements. And this we passed last year, and so it's the principals and counselors are in support of continuing to provide a level of grace to our high school students as they return to in-person learning. The Duluth Public Schools graduation requirements are 1 point credit above the state minimum. By following the state requirement, we're providing students that may have experienced a hardship with distance learning the opportunity to graduate on time. We offered this option for our seniors during the 2021 school year, and we'd like to continue for students that were with us in grades 9 through 11 for the next 3 school years. So that's another action item that will be on our consent agenda. So that is my report, and thank you.
Questions? So next on our agenda is the Human Resource Finance Committee, and I'll turn that over to Chair of that committee, Member Trinka.
Thank you. All right. Let's see. So we started out with as always, an update on the HR report and had a good discussion, albeit relatively brief, about staffing shortages. And Superintendent Megas touched on that earlier. We certainly are not in a unique position at ISD 709 around that. I will say from my board chair is actually probably maybe right now speaking at a national conference about workforce shortages in healthcare and in IT simultaneously. So it's hitting every sector. But I appreciated you bringing up earlier, if you have a 4-year degree, Betty Green, or anyone else who's watching, please, I'm gonna tap my mother at this point. Even if it's just temporary, Cindy would be a great teacher. And transportation as well. Lots of great opportunities to get involved. So, and want to echo, I just want to thank Superintendent Megas and all of those who served on the interview committee for our new director of HR. That is, as we know, an incredibly difficult position, and the person who is incoming is exceedingly qualified, and it will be exciting to welcome that person to the district. Let's see. And just one last thing to thank Laura for, really casual. We want to thank Laura for her service to the district and her time in Duluth. We had a brief financial report, including some discussions around where we are in our audit process and how that impacts our financial reports. So thank you to CFO Erickson for that. As always, Dave Spooner gave a raucous facilities department report, and we did touch on some of the cleaning protocols and the custodial opportunities that are available in our buildings. But the department really is working incredibly hard, and I just want to thank the custodians. They truly are the unsung heroes. I know working in healthcare, we talk a lot about how janitors really play a critical role in healthcare because they help prevent the spread of disease and they help bring, joy to people's day. But the spread of disease was something that was recognized obviously a long time ago. And I hope that's something that our custodial staff recognize too, is that they really are having such an incredible and remarkable impact on the lives, literally, of our students and our staff and our community. In terms of an enrollment report, we had a very good discussion around where we are. We got the breakdown of the 2019-2020 data and 2020-2021 final ADM report. And the greatest decline in elementary education. And there we had a lot of really good discussion around opportunities to assess data that's available to us to try to identify where did those students go and why did they go there and do they want to come back? And how can we use that information either to try to attract those students back into the district or as learning opportunities to try to retain our current students. Let's see. We had a really good child nutrition department report. As Superintendent Megas, I'm gonna lose my voice. As Superintendent Megas indicated, supply chain issues are having an impact on our nutrition department. I don't know if it was the Star Tribune that had a piece on Sunday about the food service workers in the cities driving to Sam's Club to get forks and spoons because the forks weren't delivered. We are anticipating, we already have seen impacts in the supply chain, which is also having impacts on the food, the type of food that we are serving our students. So the USDA is giving us latitude, and as much as I think we can all agree that pizza is not a vegetable, we also know it's food, and with the supply chain issues, we are going to continue to work with our outstanding nutrition department to really try to do the best we can to get good, healthy food into our students' bodies. But again, serving record numbers of meals, and Denfeld is, as a part of the community schools program, is providing a supper program. And just want to highlight, going back to Member Bartling's points, this is such an incredible community at Denfeld. And those who come and sit around the table in the hall, in the lunch area, dinner area at Denfeld, are part of this community. And so I think it's just such a wonderful time to engage with one another, and just want to thank the community schools, Duluth Community Schools Collaborative, and all those who are involved in providing those suppers. Just for folks in the community, our average daily breakfasts in our record-shattering 2021 year were almost 2,000, and our average daily lunches were over 4,100 per day. So pretty significant. With regards to that, though, with the USDA again extending, somebody did a really good piece on this recently, the changes in the USDA allocation, how that's impacting compensatory education dollars. For our online applications, I think this was for this year. We have had 1,059 online applications and 154 paper applications in comparison to about 3,200 last year and 3,500 the year before that, which is going to result in roughly $1.4 million deficit in compensatory education. So I know that Assistant Superintendent Bonds and CFO Erickson and the building staff are working hard on trying to remind folks to fill that out, and conferences are happening, and people are trying to leverage opportunities that they have as they interface with our communities to get them to fill out those forms. But as the USDA guidance continues to be, well, there's all sorts of things that are up in the air. We have to plan for that from a financial standpoint, and what does that mean, and how do we keep our eye on equity, the resolution that we passed about the compensatory education dollars, being 80% of it being allocated to the buildings in which it's received. If we're not getting those comp ed dollars, how do we also ensure that we're funding equity programs in our district? So we got the July transportation report. And then thank you, Jackie, for sending the updated report for transportation. Again, we got a couple new to us school buses. And we've already talked about the issues facing the transportation department, so I will not belabor that. But we did have a good discussion around using potentially vans, as long as they're DOT certified. And so thanks to the district for thinking creatively around ways we can hopefully, I might not be licensed to drive a school bus, but maybe I am to drive a van. Let's see. Really a huge thanks to the community for the huge amount of donations to DPS. It's touching to see the community, even after 18 months or 19 months, continue to prioritize the needs of the buildings, the staff, the students, the communities of ISD709. So thank you to the public for all of the donations. The fundraisers are still happening, so thanks to the students also who are doing that. I think also going back to the donations, there are a lot of businesses and organizations who donated. So as we're coming up on the holiday season, we can all maybe do a PSA or something to encourage those donations to continue to come in from our local businesses and organizations to support the great work that we've heard about tonight and at every monthly school board meeting that's happening at ISD 709. I think that would now be a good time to talk about the resolution that popped up on our agenda. Okay, so we have a new resolution on our agenda as of 4:49 this afternoon, which has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that that's when it was signed, which includes some changes and amendment to the purchase agreement for the sale of old historic Central High School. So I will invite Sipho Arison to come up and walk us through. There are only a few changes to the purchase agreement. If you could just walk us through that.
Thank you. As was shared, we had been waiting on some information from Saturday Properties regarding the closing for Historic Central. We had an item that was originally in the purchase agreement that included a transfer of a lease of the parking lot that's on the east side of the building. Turns out we didn't need to transfer that. They're going to be doing an independent contract with that owner separately. So we needed to remove that. So that's part of amendment number 2. The second part is Saturday Properties, who is here, is waiting on a few pieces of information from HUD, who is doing part of their funding. So they're in flux, waiting for a little bit of information so that they can continue to do the closing. So they've asked for a temporary delay in the closing. We don't know the date, so they asked us to put a string of dates in there, but then they'll be continuing to keep us posted on when we can do the closing, the actual closing, which could be next week. It could be 2 weeks from now. They're just not sure because there's just a huge backlog at the national level to get those. And Dan Matty, our attorney for